Hey ladies, ready women, Lisa Shaw here with LisaShawCares.com. And I wanted to do number 6 of the 7 tips of living a fulfilling life. Number 6 is have conversations that make you think. Have conversations that make you think. So I'm in my truck and getting ready to run out. And I wanted to go ahead and do this video to share with you on having conversations that make you think. Now, why do you think that that would be helpful to living a fulfilling life? I'm so glad you asked that question. It'll be helpful. Having conversations that make you think is helpful to living a fulfilling life because conversations that make us think are conversations that stretch us, conversations that grow us, conversations that challenge old mindsets. They're conversations that cause us to see things through a different perspective. They're conversations that help us to shift and align ourselves with what God has for us and what He wants to do in and through us. Conversations that make us think is good for us because sometimes you can be stuck in a thought process or a pattern of thinking that is not healthy for you. We've all been there, right? Where you're stuck in a mindset that is not serving you well. Maybe you don't look at yourself well. Maybe you don't think well of yourself. Maybe you struggle with insecurities, with fear, with anxiety. Maybe you doubt the call of God on your life. Maybe you're doing great in terms of where you serve and how you work, how you do your job, how you serve through your business, how you serve in ministry. But maybe you struggle in the successes that you have. Maybe you're thinking, I don't deserve it. You know, maybe you deal with imposter syndrome. And so having conversations that will make you think can help you in those areas. Because I remember a woman one time saying to me, she said, I talk to myself. She said, Pastor Lisa, I just talk myself right on through it. And I said, well, if you're talking to yourself, what's yourself saying? Because if you're talking to yourself and you feel you don't need to talk to anybody else and you're just having a conversation with yourself, you got to ask yourself what you're saying. Because if self is not saying what is beneficial to you, to help you to grow and improve, and to help you to navigate through the challenges and obstacles that present itself to you, then you got to tell self to be quiet and start talking to God and hearing from God, but also having conversations that will make you think. That is so critical. That's so critical. One of my clients, well, she was my client for a year last year. She's doing phenomenally well now. But one of my clients, that was the very thing that had to happen. I had to coach her out of a pattern of thinking that was hindering her and coach her into a pattern of thinking that would help her to be successful in what God has purposed her to do. This is an amazing woman. And she's smart as a whip. And she had reached, come to a certain point in her life and had done very well and suddenly faced a roadblock. And her pattern of thinking was not helping her to climb over that roadblock, go around the roadblock, or even bust through the roadblock. I'm all through busting up the roadblocks. Come on. And I had to coach her through that. And her roadblock was a professional situation, but it really was coming out of the pattern of thinking that she had. So who are you having conversations with that make you think? Are you having conversations that make you think? What I'm not talking about are conversations that steer you away from God and steer you into other types of belief systems and all of that. That's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about, when people say progressive, they're usually talking about taking you away from God and taking you into another line of thinking that has nothing to do with the Word of God. And I don't agree with that. And so, having conversations that help you, excuse me, help you to carry out whatever it is that God has purposed you to do is what's important. So who are you having your conversations with? Friends, family, people you know on your job? Who is it you're having conversations with that make you think? Who is it? Right now, I want you to think about this. Who in your life can you talk to that when you sit down and have a conversation with that person, or when you get on the phone, or when you're texting them, that's someone that you know when you finish having that conversation, that it would have been a conversation that challenged you to think more open-minded, challenged you to be stretched, maybe even to be vulnerable. Those conversations that cause you to say, wow, I needed to hear that. Or, I hadn't thought about it that way. Or, wow, what an awareness this was for me. I'm so grateful to God that I can talk to this person. Who is it in your life? Because having conversations that make you think can be very life-changing. It took me 10 years to write my first book. Some of you probably have heard this story before. It took me 10 years. And I had encouragement. I had encouragement from my husband. I had encouragement from people in ministry. I had encouragement from people on the job and people in my nonprofit at the time. I had a super encouragement. And it took me 10 years. And it was just, this is a long time ago, because I finally wrote my first book and published it in 2011. So it took 10 years before that for me to actually get it done, to actually sit down and do it. You know, I'd write a little bit here, write a little bit there, tuck it away in the end table. That's why I know, you writers, I know. But what it took was one person having a conversation with this one person. It was in 2010 at Chipotle. And she said this: what's taken you so long to write your book? You've talked about it to me. How long has it been since you've been trying to write your book? And I said, oh, it hasn't been long. And then I caught myself and I thought about it and I was like, ooh, 10 years. Her one question prompted a shift in my thinking. And she didn't let me get away with saying, oh, you know, it hasn't been that long. Or I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it, you know, in time. She didn't let me get away with that. She wanted to know when. What's in the way of it? When are you going to get your book done? And that caused me to think. That question caused me to think. And I realized, once I told myself the truth, that's number 1 of the 7 tips, remember? I had to tell myself the truth. And I realized it has been 10 years of this. Then I got a little frustrated with myself. And then I got over it. And I said, okay, let me sit down and do it. And she was right there having those conversations with me when I'm trying to hear God on the name for the book. And, you know, I'm thinking, let me write 200 pages. And God's saying, no, I want it under 100. Matter of fact, I want it like 70 something pages. I want it simplistic and powerful. And I'm like, well, that's not what people want to read. People want big, thick books. And So she was right there saying, wait a minute, write what he told you to write. So those conversations that make you think can be life-changing. Because You Are Beautiful in God's Eyes, that I published in 2011, I have sold so many of those books by the grace of God. I've sold them to choirs, to teenage groups, to women's ministries, to Bible studies, to individual women, to a senior community, and on and on and on. That book, I have gone through boxes, and I've reordered boxes and boxes and boxes of that first book. Little old 78-page book, whatever it is. So when God challenged me again in 2016 to sit down and write a book and to get it done for a conference I was having, a workshop I was having in April of 2016. And so I started writing it in 2015. And again, this time he used my husband to have that conversation to make me think. My husband said, do you really want to show up at that workshop without the book? You've talked about the book. Do you want to show up without the book? He said, what's really hindering you from getting the book done? I said, don't try to coach me. I'm the professional. And we laughed. But that conversation made me think. And then it took me back to the first book and what the delay really was about. And so then with the second book, I sat down and I got it done in less than a year. And it was ready for my workshop in April of 2016. That's my No Fear, Fear Will Grip You or Grow You. I am now on my third book, which will be a little bit more involved, a little bit thicker book because I'm covering a lot more areas. And that book it's not about perfection, it's about purpose. I'm really excited about that because it's going to cover some specific areas for women. My point in sharing that with you is conversations that make you think are important. Make sure you have conversations that make you think. If you're only around people who will yes you, you're in trouble. If you're only around people who will say, oh, you're good, don't worry about it, girl, you're all right, you're okay, you don't have to do it, then you're in trouble. You need people in your life that will challenge you, and challenge is not a dirty word. People who will challenge you to grow, challenge you to get the things done that you say that you've been called to do, right? And so you want to have those conversations that make you think, because it will cause you to really pay attention to some of the things that you need to pay attention to. That's why I love coaching people. One of the reasons why. I help them to think. I help them. It doesn't matter to me what level they're on, what their background, whatever it is. I help them to think, to break patterns of thinking and develop new patterns of thinking. Mindset is powerful. And then helping them to make other strategic decisions and how to implement those decisions in their businesses, their ministries, their with the whatever it is that they're doing, right? But how to navigate obstacles, how to be strategic in their thinking. That's important. So I hope this helps you. Have conversations that make you think, ready women. This is Lisa Shaw with LisaShawCares.com. I'm here for you. If you need a coaching session, reach out so I can send you the information on that. On how to sign up with me and get your paperwork done and all those little things that need to be done on an administrative level. And then let's get going. Let's get going so that 2022 can look different for you. God bless you.